Hi, students. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Super Grads. I'm your English mentor, Sana Jaffrey, and I welcome you to the Hindu Editorial series. Okay, so class, how is it going? And how is your preparation going? I hope you have kick-started your preparation because the more you delay, the worse it's going to be for you, right? So it's imperative that we understand that though we have substantial amount of time, but still you have to maintain your IPMAT preparation along with your school studies, right? So both of them are important. And if you're a dropper, you already know there's so much at stake. Fine. So please don't you wait, right? Don't be very comfortable. Start your preparation with utmost seriousness and start your preparation with us. So we've come up with this initiative, and students have reported that they are finding this very beneficial. So we will continue with this. And as of now, let's have a quick look at the Hindu editorial page. If you've not read the editorials yet, it's time to pick it up and start reading. Okay? All right. तो यहाँ पे देखिए this very interesting article on India and a case for strategic autonomy. I have picked this up for today and we will be discussing this, right? तो आपको पता ही है कि मैं पूरा आपको आर्टिकल एक्सप्लेन करती हूँ, जितने भी वर्ड्स आते हैं, फ्रेजेस आते हैं, इडियम्स आते हैं, मैं आपको वो बताती हूँ. सारे important points जो हैं, which I call mind mapping. I take that up with you. I put them up in a slide and then I discuss them with you. Reason for doing this is very simple. When you read any passage, article, essay, whatever, right? You must have these points etched in your memory because you will not get the time to, shuttle back to the passage over and over. So your comprehension is one, good comprehension, quality comprehension is one where you're able to remember at least the highlights of the passage. So जो key ideas हैं, we don't expect you to remember all the facts and figures. That's not humanly possible. But at least all the important ideas are very very important to be remembered. Fine. So एक तो ये बहुत प्यारा आर्टिकल आया. फिर मैंने ये उठाया ट्रेड टैक्ट. आई फाउंड दिस वेरी टेक्निकल एंड आई थॉट इसके भी इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंट्स हम करेंगे. तो लेट्स डाइव इन. बढ़िया है, रीडेबल है. ओके. अब इस आर्टिकल को उठाने का एक बहुत सिंपल सा पर्पस था. uh, See, you've got to understand the scheme of international relations because a majority of editorials and articles that you will read will be referring to all the history of the different nations and the power play among the powerful countries around the world. So it's always a good idea to be well apprised of at least India and its relationship with the different countries. And this article gives you a very nice glimpse of the different power plays that have actually taken place around the world. Okay, so of course, this is being done in the wake of the Russia Ukraine conflict, but then India's stance on Russia Ukraine war has been discussed. Fine. So, title kya hai? India and a case of and a case for strategic autonomy. So you have to understand the word autonomy first. Hi, Storm. Okay. Hi, Uzair. So good to see you again. So Storm, a nice name. The idea is that yes, I completely understand that vocabulary vortex or the storm of words is baffling you, and you feel how can I remember these words? Now, the point is if you sit down and you start cramming a word list, which eventually one has to do, but then this idea has very limited utility sometimes. You see, you have to understand the word in entirety, in totality. And the best and the most natural way is to read and understand the word. That is why we are doing this for you. तो एडिटोरियल एनालिसिस सिर्फ आपका कॉम्प्रिहेंशन नहीं बल्कि वर्ड्स को कैसे हम समझेंगे और याद रख पाएंगे है ना. तो दिस इज ऑल्सो अ वेरी नाइस वे ऑफ डेवलपिंग योर वोकैबुलरी. सो द फर्स्ट recommendation is that you read and you extract words from there because that way when you see a word being used automatically it registers better, it anchors better in your mind. Secondly, beta, revision is very important because if you don't revise the words, you will definitely forget them. And above everything, for me, what has worked the most is the application part. तो अगर आप words को use कर पाओगे तो nothing like it. Obviously, it's not possible to use all the words. So it calls for a frequent revision. And if you say that, ma'am, I don't speak, okay, fine, at least you can write. So you should at least try to, make sentences out of those words. Somewhere or the other, some mnemonics might work, some kind of a memory aid. You can associate the word with some person, or you can associate the word with a Hindi equivalent of the word. इस ऐसी कुछ कुछ ट्रिक्स होती हैं जो कभी मैं अपनी वोकैबुलरी सेशन में भी करवाऊंगी, ठीक है ना? तो इस तरह से आप वर्ड्स को याद रख सकते हैं, बट द बॉटम लाइन इज number one, revision, and number two, application. These are the most important things. Very nice, Uzair. Uzair has even told us the etymology of this. Auto का मतलब होता है self, and nomi, nomos means arrangement or system, or a kind of a rule, not rule, but more of an arrangement. Autonomy or rule, we can call it rule also. So autonomy would translate to self rule. Yani, a country trying to be autonomous, it wants to have sovereignty, it wants to be independent. Strategic autonomy मतलब हम independent तो रहे, but at the same time we can be strategic. We should know कि हमें किससे relations रखना है, किससे नहीं. तो strategy है, तुम्हारी कोई planning है, fine. तो international relations में you have multiple countries and conflicts with multiple countries. There are blocks, there are poles. It's quite a multipolar world these days. So maintaining allegiance with your partners, but at the same time trying not to offend others is the key. So this is strategic autonomy, है ना? तो इसको डिस्क्राइब भी किया गया है आगे पैसेज में. So first of all, let's read on. On July 11, 2024, 2 days after PM Narendra Modi had concluded his first visit to Moscow since Russia invaded Ukraine on Feb 24, 2022, Eric Garcetti, the USA ambassador to India, said, in times of conflict, there's no such thing as strategic autonomy. We will in crisis moments need to know each other. तो ये बता रहे हैं कि of course this much must be clear. It's written in very simple language that RPM Narendra Modi, he went uh, to visit Moscow, and this is the first time since Russia invaded Ukraine. And in the wake of this, the US ambassador to India commented something that, these are the times of conflict, and here there's nothing like being very strategic or maintaining a strategic autonomy. In crisis, you can't be that strategic and diplomatic. That was the essence. Okay. So this is against the background that India so far has not condemned Russia on an international forum. And US is frowning at it because US wants India to side with NATO, Ukraine, right? And US, of course, they are all a lobby. And because we have a good history, we have always had good relations with Russia. That's the reason why India does not want to offend Russia. And we have abstained from making any such remarks against Russia. So this is inviting wrath, not wrath, but yes, some kind of a dissatisfaction from the US. That is the essence. When Mr. Modi was in Russia on the eve of a NATO summit in Washington, the Joe Biden administration had expressed its concerns publicly. We have expressed those privately, directly to the Indian government, and continue to do so, a US State Department spokesperson said. तो जब Modi visited Russia, जब वो रशिया गए थे, that was NATO summit. The same day, there was NATO summit in Washington. And there itself, the Biden administration very clearly communicated publicly that we have time and again expressed our concerns privately and publicly to India. But India doesn't seem to listen, right? Okay. So far, I hope the paragraph is very clear. President Joe Biden's national security advisor Jake Sullivan joined the debate on July 13 by telling MSNBC that a bet on Russia as a long-term reliable partner is not a good bet. Russia would side with China over India any day of the week. Do you see that? So this person who is national security advisor, he also pitched in Okay, he also put up his points and he said that you cannot bet on Russia, you cannot actually depend on Russia because Russia would side with China over India. Because we know the proximity between Russia and China, the ever growing proximity. In fact, in this war, if there is someone who is backing up Russia explicitly, it is actually China. China is the most important support or ally of Russia here in this China Ukraine sorry Russia Ukraine conflict. So that is where this fellow comments that India अगर सोच रही है कि रशिया हमारा दोस्त है तो रशिया तो चाइना को चूज कर लेगा इंडिया का साथ नहीं देगा not a very reliable partner. There were reports in the US media that US officials had asked New Delhi to postpone Mr. Modi's Moscow visit as the NATO summit was to begin on July 9th. Fine. But India decided to go ahead with the plan, which disturbed the Biden administration. In fact, they went to the extent of saying कि नहीं हमारी summit है, आप तो बाद में चले जाना अगर आपको जाना ही है. Fine. But India did not budge. India continued with its plans, right? So this shows India's tough-headedness and resolve in maintaining relations with Russia, despite US trying to disturb the alliance. Okay, stress points historical overview. Now, this is very important because this is going to tell you a lot about the international relations. Okay, so historical overview hai. This is the very major reason why I've picked this editorial because this is a nice and a very informative one. While the overall trajectory of the strategic partnership between India and the US seems steady, stress points have appeared in the relationship in recent years. So the point is, what do you mean by the word trajectory? आप simply बोल सकते हो अब तक का जो path रहा है, the trajectory. What has been my career trajectory, my career path so far? So the path or a relationship between India and US has been very strategic and has been going steady. But then there are some stress points. There have been some bumps here and there. Of these, the most consequential, the most important was India's refusal to toe the Western line vis-a-vis Russia on the Ukraine war. Very nice. So here we get one very wonderful expression, toe the line. What do you mean by toe the line? Toe the line is to follow someone. उनके पीछे पीछे चलते रहो आप, ठीक है? To comply with what they are saying, to listen to their orders, right? To be with them, follow them. Fine. Now it says that सबसे बड़ा stress point, सबसे बड़ा strain Indo-US relationships में कब आया? When India refused to follow the Western countries. Vis-a-vis. Now, what is vis-a-vis? Sir, there are some words which are very commonly used and we often know their meaning contextually, but if somebody asks us, we may not be able to describe them with accuracy because we have never researched those words. That's the major reason why I come up with vocabulary vortex, where I detail out the words properly. Okay, vis-a-vis को भी समझना थोड़ा मुश्किल हो जाता है कभी कभी लोगों के लिए, but it's not that difficult. Vis-a-vis का मतलब होता है in relation to or regarding. ठीक है, sometimes it's also done compared with. We need to analyze our performance vis-a-vis our competitors, है ना? तो vis-a-vis with that of our competitors मतलब हमें हमारा performance as compared to our competitors' performance. We've got to do a nice check. We have to compare, right? तो vis-a-vis के दोनों मतलब regarding भी और compared with भी. तो यहाँ पे तो regarding वाला ही हो रहा है कि इंडिया ने जो मना कर दिया, India did not dance to the Western tunes, okay, in context of the Russia-Ukraine war. Now, this was a major strain point. While the US and its allies imposed economic sanctions on Russia and supplied weapons worth billions of dollars to Ukraine to fight the invading troops, India maintained its strategic partnership with Moscow, expanded its energy cooperation, and refused to condemn the invasion at international fora, even as it called for bringing the war to an end and show respect towards the territorial sovereignty and integrity of all countries. Now, the point is, US and all its partners, what they did, they imposed economic sanctions on Russia. And not just that, they also bolstered Ukraine's military campaign, right? They supplied lots of weapons, billions of dollars of weapons to Ukraine to fight with the Russian troops. अभी तक अगर एक बहुत ही ज्यादा क्लियर विक्ट्री नहीं हुई है, इफ रशिया हैज नॉट एक्सपीरियंस लैंडस्लाइड विक्ट्री इन यूक्रेन, द मेजर रीजन इज द सपोर्ट ऑफ नाटो नेशंस. Okay, the support that the NATO nations are extending to Ukraine, and US being the biggest partner in that. But India has maintained its strategic partnership with Moscow. When we say Moscow, we actually mean Russia. Okay, and not just that, we have even expanded our energy cooperation. And we did not condemn. India did not condemn. What is to condemn? To condemn is to criticize. India did not criticize um, Russia in any international platform. And at the same time, however, we have criticized war. Okay, we have, as Indians, we have demanded that war should end, and we must show respect to the territorial sovereignty. Now, even the word sovereignty is a very nice one. Territorial comes from the word territory, your entire land and your area, and sovereignty is again your autonomy or independence or self governance. So, what is sovereignty? Self governance. तो हमने डायरेक्टली किसी कंट्री को किसी का साइड नहीं लिया, बस हमने वॉर के खिलाफ बात करी, दैट्स इट. फॉर इंडिया दिस वाज अ न्यूट्रल पोजीशन, बट इन द वेस्ट दिस वाज सीन एज इकोनॉमिक सपोर्ट फॉर द रशियन प्रेसिडेंट व्लादिमीर पुतिन's war, because we expanded energy cooperation with them. So the western countries saw this as if we were supporting Russia's war against Ukraine. This caused wrinkles in the India US partnership, which has widened over the past 2.5 years. The public comments by top US officials earlier this month were the sharpest manifestation of the persisting stress points. Manifestation, when you manifest something, you show or you express something. So, your manifestation, we can say it means expression. इन चीजों से इंडिया यूएस की जो पार्टनरशिप है, इट हैज गॉट अ काइंड ऑफ अ डेंट. ओके, और ये पार्टनरशिप पिछले 2.5 साल में बहुत अच्छी रोबस्ट हो गई थी, बट नाउ इवन द यूएस ऑफिशियल्स they can be seen talking about it. We can see their manifestation of these stress points. ये जो strain in the relationship है, that can be seen. Ambassador Garcetti's comment that strategic autonomy is meaningless during the time of crisis goes against the very premise of strategic autonomy. Now the author has to comment something on these remarks by Garcetti, and here he's going to tell us what exactly strategic autonomy stands for. तो वो कह रहे हैं कि आप बोल रहे हो, गार्सिटी बोल रहे हैं कि स्ट्रैटेजिक ऑटोनॉमी जो है वो तो मीनिंगलेस होती है क्राइसिस के टाइम पे. तो एक तरह से ये तो दिस वेरी स्टेटमेंट इज पैराडॉक्सिकल, राइट? दिस गोज अगेंस्ट the very meaning or the very premise or the foundation of strategic autonomy. A simple definition of the concept. Which concept? Strategic autonomy. What is the simple definition? That countries should be able to make decisions that best serve their national interests, irrespective of the pulls and pressures from other parties. Wow. The strategic autonomy का ही मतलब होता है that you have to act like an autonomous nation. Fine, you have the right and you should make decisions that serve your interests best. So as a nation, I will have to see where I benefit the most. What is my national interest, irrespective of the pressures and the pulls that I face. Fine. So us hisab se to that is what exactly we are doing. We are preserving our strategic autonomy by not siding with anyone explicitly, by not succumbing to the US pressure. There are two elements in this concept. The first is the inherent conviction that a nation is capable of taking decisions that serve its interests. The second is that the nation should have the will and the resources to take those decisions even in the face of high pressure. तब उन्होंने बोला इसके दो एलिमेंट्स है. पहली बात है कि एक इनहेरेंट कन्विक्शन होना चाहिए. व्हाट इज कन्विक्शन? कन्विक्शन होता है बिलीफ. कन्विक्शन इज बिलीफ. फाइन, अ फर्म बिलीफ इन समथिंग. दूसरा भी कन्विक्शन होता है लीगल वाला, कि जब किसी जो कोई कॉन्विक्ट जब हम किसी को करते हैं, है ना, वो कॉन्विक्ट when you are convicted of a crime, that means आप ही ने क्राइम किया, ये साबित हो जाता है. बट वो यहाँ पे बैकग्राउंड नहीं है, कॉन्टेक्चुअल मीनिंग यहाँ पे बिलीफ का ही है. तो पहली चीज एक इनहेरेंट बिलीफ है कि नेशन डिसीजंस ले सकता है जो उसके इंटरेस्ट में है. दूसरा ये है that the nation should have the will and the resources to take those decisions even in the face of high pressure. पहली बात तो ये है भाई कि तुम ले सकते हो, तुम्हें हक बनता है. दूसरी बात क्या है कि जस्ट अ सेकेंड, या दूसरी बात यह कि नेशन में उतने रिसोर्सेज भी होना चाहिए और उतनी एबिलिटी और उतना दम होना चाहिए कि वो डिसीजंस ले पाए एंड दे डोंट सकम टू प्रेशर इन द फेस ऑफ हाई प्रेशर, मतलब व्हेन फेसिंग हाई प्रेशर, राइट? So if India is not able to take autonomous foreign policy decisions during the times of conflict and crisis moments, as Mr. Gassati has said, it is not exercising its strategic autonomy. सो द ऑथर फील्स के गार्सेटी कह रहे हैं कि स्ट्रैटेजिक ऑटोनॉमी क्राइसिस में मीनिंगलेस होती है। वो कह रहे हैं ये स्ट्रैटेजिक ऑटोनॉमी ही है जो हम कर रहे हैं, वी आर डिस्प्लेइंग स्ट्रैटेजिक ऑटोनॉमी, and by the very meaning of this term we should have the spine that we should stand for our nation's interest first without succumbing to any pressure tactics. Is this much clear, everybody? I hope this is clear. All Indian governments since independence have followed strategic autonomy in one form or the other, whether it is called non-alignment. We're talking of the Indian governments, right? Non-alignment, multi-alignment, multi-directional foreign policy और strategic autonomy. अब ये हिस्ट्री पे चले गए और ये कह रहे हैं शुरू से लेके अब तक इंडियन गवर्नमेंट ने हमेशा कोई ना कोई टाइप की स्ट्रैटेजिक ऑटोनॉमी डिस्प्ले करी है, सम और द अदर फॉर्म। बैक देन नेहरू के टाइम पर नॉन अलाइनमेंट की हमने पॉलिसी फॉलो करी थी कि भैया हम किसी के साइड नहीं है, फाइन। मल्टी अलाइनमेंट हो कि हम मल्टीपल पोल्स हैं, मल्टी डायरेक्शनल फॉरेन पॉलिसी हो, जो भी आप नाम दे दो उसको, बट वी हैव फॉलोड स्ट्रैटेजिक ऑटोनॉमी एंड दे डिड नॉट फॉलो दिस एज अ डॉगमा बट एज अ फॉरेन पॉलिसी अप्रोच टू द कंट्रीज इंटरेस्ट्स इन अ चॉपी इंटरनेशनल सिस्टम। द इंटरनेशनल ऑर्डर कीप्स चेंजिंग, right? It is choppy means discontinuous, right? तो जो भी इंटरनेशनल सिस्टम बदलता रहा हमारी उस हिसाब से फॉरेन पॉलिसी अकॉर्डिंगली इट केप्ट चेंजिंग। A conventional understanding about India's foreign policy was that it was too idealistic in the initial years to understand the currents of power politics, right? Conventional मतलब traditional. So initially, yes, we were like probably too idealistic in our own things and we couldn't understand the currents or the sway of the power politics. But non alignment and Asian solidarity, as envisaged by Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru and others, helped India, a newly decolonized republic that was born into a bipolar global order, mobilize voices in the third world and stay out of both blocs and pursue its interests and those of the newly decolonized countries. This gave both a moral footing and pragmatic levers to India's foreign policy. Now, very important, it is telling us about the new world, the post independent India. Fine, what was our footing back then? Because there, after the World War II, we all know that there were two poles. It was a bipolar world. On one end, there was US, and the other end, there was Soviet Union. And there was a Cold War between the two. These were the two poles. And India practiced non alignment. India did not take any side. Fine. And at the same time, we as our foreign policy was Asian solidarity. Solidarity, togetherness, unity. तो हमारी सॉलिड देखो, solidarity बहुत अच्छा वर्ड है. We express solidarity with our Asian countries, you know, unity or togetherness or extending support. This was envisaged, imagined, okay, or adopted mentally by our prime minister, and this helped us to navigate our way through the bipolar world. Fine. And also mobilize voices in the third world. हम third world country थी तो हमारी आवाज थोड़ी ऊंची हुई हमारी foreign policies की वजह से, and as we got some footing in this world. Fine. And we pursued our interests which were in our nation's interest. इससे हमें थोड़ी moral footing भी मिली. We knew what our moralities were, and also this was a very practical approach. This was a very pragmatic lever. What is pragmatic? It means simply practical. Okay, so this tells us about the history, what has been India's stance, what has been India's foreign policy like. India initially stayed equidistant to both the capitalist and the communist blocs. But after the US formed new treaty alliances in Asia, Pakistan became a member of both Southeast Asia Treaty Organization, CETO, and the Central Treaty Organization. And China moved closer towards the US after breaking up with the Soviet Union. India began building stronger ties with Moscow, but without forfeiting its strategic autonomy. Now, this is interesting. Initially, though, India stayed ekdam equidistant. We followed the non-alignment movement. Okay, we are neither with the capitalistic US, we are nor with the communistic Soviet Union. But US very soon formed alliances in Asia. है ना, एशिया को अपने साथ, यूएस बहुत उस्ताद है इन सारी चीजों में, तो उन्होंने क्या किया, अलायंसेस करने लग गए एशिया के साथ में, पाकिस्तान उनका मेंबर बन गया, ठीक है, उनके अलायंसेस में। और चाइना भी, आफ्टर द ब्रेकअप विद सोवियत यूनियन, चाइना आल्सो माइग्रेटेड टुवर्ड्स यूएस। दैट इज वेयर इंडिया स्टार्टेड बिल्डिंग स्ट्रॉन्गर टाइज विद मॉस्को। इनिशियली we were very neutral, but in the wake of all these developments and Pakistan and China both siding with the US, so obviously India के लिए logical चीज क्या थी, that we had a bent towards Russia. So that is where our relationship with Russia started flourishing. But without forfeiting strategic autonomy. हमने forfeit नहीं किया, हमने छोड़ी नहीं. We did not let go our autonomy and independence. We still had a voice. And when the Soviet Union and the communist bloc collapsed by 1991, India chose greater integration with the global economy and closer strategic partnership with the West. But when Soviet Union and bloc, they had a very bad end. Okay, it completely collapsed, fine, followed by some intermittent wars and all that. India chose to integrate with the global economy. हमने पार्टनरशिप करना शुरू करी वेस्ट से, क्यों? अगेन क्योंकि इट वाज स्ट्रेटेजिक फॉर अस टू डू सो। तो इंडिया ने अपना इंटरेस्ट के हिसाब से अपना स्टैंड लिया है, ठीक है। दैट्स व्हाट द पैसेज इज ट्राइंग टू हाईलाइट। ग्रेट पावर राइवलरी। From India's point of view, the global order is again changing. See, the article is lengthy. But आप बने रहेंगे, आप मेरे साथ पढ़ते रहेंगे, समझते रहेंगे, तो we can do justice to it. ठीक है ना? Okay. Global order बदल रहा है अभी भी. US remains the world's most powerful country, but the world order is no longer unipolar. यूएस आज भी सबसे पावरफुल नेशन है वर्ल्ड का, बट यूनिपोलर नहीं है. देयर इज नॉट ओनली वन पोल ऑफ पावर. चाइना इज द सेकंड पोल. चाइना ऑलरेडी द वर्ल्ड सेकंड लार्जेस्ट इकोनॉमी इज राइजिंग एज अ स्ट्रॉन्ग कंपेटिटर टू अमेरिका's ग्लोबल प्रीमेसी. Russia is challenging the Western security architecture in Europe militarily. Now, there are multiple poles. एक तो China, economically, China has become the second largest economy. So, this is a rising threat to America's hegemony here. At the same time, Russia in the European world, right? Russia is challenging the Western security architecture or setup in the military way. Okay, by waging a war against the other country. In West Asia, a shadow war between Israel, an American ally, and Iran, a close Russian strategic partner, is heating up. Yeah, it's a very interesting article, Uzair. That's what I'm saying. और एशिया में क्या हो रहा है, वेस्ट एशिया में भी दो नेशंस के बीच में वॉर जो है वो ट्रिगर अप होने के चांसेस नजर आते हैं. क्या है वो कंट्रीज? एक तो इजराइल वर्सेस ईरान. नाउ इजराइल का पार्टनर कौन है? यूएस. और ईरान को कौन बैकअप करता है? रशिया. तो फिर से एक तरह से रशिया जो है वो काफी डायनामिक्स में नजर आ रहा है. In an anarchic order, India wants to strike a balance between great powers without joining any alliance system. And for this, maintaining its strategic autonomy is essential. Now, this looks like a very disturbed world order. Fine, which is rife with violence and conflicts. And in such a scenario, India wants to balance without siding with anyone, without joining any alliance. And for this, of course, we need strategic autonomy. Simple. The Russia policy is a case in point. Case in point कब बोलते हैं? A case in point simply means an example of the case discussed. Simply means an example of the issue discussed. While energy ties with Russia are largely opportunistic and driven by cheap prices, India's crude imports from Russia jump from this to this. The defense partnership is structural. अगर हम किसी चीज को स्ट्रक्चरल बोलते हैं It means it's foundational. Matlab, it's very important. It's like a structure. It's extremely important. Okay, it lays down the foundation. तो ये कह रहा है कि जो हमारी energy ties हैं, they are driven by cheap prices. Fine. And you can clearly see that we are importing more and more crude oil from Russia. Okay, why it's driven by prices? It's very strategic. But the defense partnership जो है ना, वो structural, वो foundational. Russia is the source of 40% of India's defense import. जितने भी हम ये defense equipment import करते हैं, 40% हम रशिया से करते हैं. 86% of the Indian military's equipment is of Russian origin. 86% of military equipment, right? This cannot be undone overnight. तो obviously हमारा रशिया इतना military partner रहा है सालों से. So how can we shut the relationship and how can we end it? We cannot end all of this overnight. Russia is also an important partner in continental Asia, where India works with Eurasian powers for economic progress, connectivity, and tackling security challenges. So also because Russia, a part of it is in Asia, so one of the जिसको हम कहते हैं ना कि मतलब Asian partner भी है, where we have to develop a very nice, prosperous economic area where we can flourish, and also keeping in mind the security challenges. तो हमारा partner भी है, वो regional partner भी है Russia. To be sure, Russia's deepening ties with China alter the essence of India's historical partnership with Moscow. Now, there is one thing, Russia ki jo proclivity, the propensity with China, as we witness here, is definitely altering the essence of our historical partnership with Russia. Moscow bol rahe hain wo, the capital of Russia, so it means Russia itself. But it is also an opportunity to recast the Indian-Russian partnership as a more equal bilateral partnership. During the Cold War, it was heavily lopsided, where both sides would be mindful of each other's sensitivities. ठीक है, अगर रशिया की प्रोपेंसिटी हो रही है चाइना की तरफ तो होने दो. It is good for us. It's an opportunity for us also that हम भी फिर उस हिसाब से आगे फ्यूचर में अपना स्टैंड बदल सकते हैं. Here it's more of a level-headed and a balanced relationship between the two nations. Initially, during the Cold War, इट वॉज वेरी लॉपसाइडेड. जब हमने प्रोपेंसिटी और हमने रशिया की तरफ हाथ बढ़ाया था ड्यूरिंग द कोल्ड वॉर, मतलब जो पूरा आपको बताया हुआ है, जब यूएस ने अलायंसेस एशिया में बनाया उसके बाद में, तब थोड़ा लॉपसाइडेड मामला था. अब वी विल बी माइंडफुल ऑफ ईच अदर्स सेंसिटिविटी. बेटा कोल्ड वॉर जो हुआ था ना, बहुत ज्यादा कंपटीशन और बहुत ही वो एक प्रॉपर डायरेक्ट मिलिट्री वॉर नहीं थी, बट यूएस और रशिया, जो सोवियत यूनियन होता था पहले, जिसके अंदर बहुत सारी कंट्रीज आती थी, उनके बीच में ना बहुत बहुत कंपटीशन और एनमिटी हो रही थी. ठीक है ना, दैट वाज द एरा. और उस टाइम पे दो ही पावर्स होती थी, जिसको हम कहते हैं ना बाइपोलर वर्ल्ड ऑर्डर हो गया था, यूएस ऑन वन हैंड एंड सोवियत यूनियन ऑन द अदर हैंड. ठीक है, ओके. इंडिया वुड नॉट लाइक टू सी रशिया कट ऑफ फ्रॉम द वेस्ट, गोइंग कंप्लीटली इनटू द चाइनीज एम्ब्रेस. वन मोर रीजन व्हाई वी वांट टू बी देयर विद रशिया, because if we also withdraw from Russia, तो रशिया के पास में एक ही पार्टनर बचेगा, चाइना. तो हम ये नहीं चाहते. India does not want Russia to be completely cut off from the West and go into the Chinese embrace. Embrace क्या होता है? To embrace something is to adopt or espouse something, है ना. एक तो embrace का मतलब होता है गले लगाना, embrace करना, या इवन अडॉप्ट करने के सेंस में हम बोल सकते हैं. एंड मॉस्को वुड लाइक टू हैव मल्टीपल ऑप्शंस rather than putting all its eggs in one basket of the Middle Kingdom. And of course, here, if we maintain our relations with Russia, then of course Russia would have multiple options. कुछ Western countries, India तो है ही. Instead of putting all its eggs in one basket, what does put all your eggs in one basket? What does it mean? When you rely only on one person or one thing, here, if we also cut off our relations with Russia, then Russia will have all its eggs in the Chinese basket. China would be the only support, and that's not good for Russia also, है ना. If India were part of any alliance system, such as Germany, for example, which had to silently accept the destruction of the Nord Stream pipeline, which it part owns, India would not have the strategic space to pursue its partnership with Russia while staying a closer partner of the West. Here, autonomy plays a major part. तो एग्जाम्पल बता रहे हैं कि अगर इंडिया ऐसे अलायंस सिस्टम का पार्ट होती जैसे जर्मनी थी, तो जर्मनी को भी ना नॉर्थ स्ट्रीम पाइपलाइन का डिस्ट्रक्शन चुपचाप से बर्दाश्त करना पड़ा. बट इंडिया thankfully has its own space. Fine. So we want to be with the West also. At the same time, we don't want to dismantle our relations with Russia as well. Now, the last part, positive sum game. The US need not see this as an unfriendly foreign policy choice. India is not a disruptive revisionist power. What do you mean by this? Our stance should not be viewed by the US as an unfriendly policy. India is not a disruptive revisionist power. Revisionist से हमारा मतलब क्या है? When we call something or somebody as revisionist, that means they're trying to revise the things or they're trying to change the things. So revisionist power means that we are being too ambitious and we want to change the world power or the world order rather. So revisionist power, जैसे चाइना को देखा जाता है, they're trying to change or topple the world order. They're trying to become more and more pronounced and prominent and they want to dominate every area and territory, right? But हमें आप disruptive मत समझिए. We are not there to destroy or disrupt anything, nor are we there to revise the world order. It supports a multilateral global order. What is our stance? Let us put it up very clearly. As Indians, we want to have a multilateral global order. जहां पे अलग बहुत सारे लोग हों, उन सबका इन्वॉल्वमेंट हो. ऐसा नहीं कि बस एक या दो लोग ही रूल कर रहे हैं पूरी दुनिया को. एंड दैट इज बिकॉज इट वांट्स द इंटरनेशनल सिस्टम टू बी मोर representative in line with the geopolitical realities of the present. So we want the international system to represent the geopolitical realities. There are multiple geographies, there are multiple political systems. So we want the international system to represent and honor the integrity of all the nations involved. The world is already multipolar economically, but a similar transition has not taken place in its power dynamics. Economically speaking, multipolar hai. It's no longer only the US that is dominating the world economy. There are BRICS nations, है ना? तो obviously, but power dynamics के हिसाब से अभी भी बस US ही है जो पूरे कंट्री में, पूरी दुनिया में पावरफुल माना जाता है और मिडल करता है with the world politics. India wants to improve the system where its voice and that of the global south could be heard with greater interest. For New Delhi, strategic economy does not call for isolationism. So we obviously want a system where our voice is heard. It calls for greater engagement with different power centers rooted in informed national interest. We want greater engagement with different power centers. We want strategic alliances with multiple powers. Theorists of strategic autonomy do not look at foreign policy as a zero-sum game where one party gains something at the expense of others. तो क्या होता है zero sum game जब हम बोलते हैं ना, it simply means that net is zero. Somebody gains and somebody else loses. So I gain something at the expense of somebody else. That is zero sum game. यहाँ पे हम zero sum game नहीं चाहते. We want a positive sum game where everyone gains. We want it to be a win-win relationship. ये बहुत common word है जो आपको मिलेगा. It's a buzz in the market jargons. Win-win relationship का मतलब होता है तुम भी, तुम्हारा भी भला हो, हमारा भी भला हो. Let it be a symbiotic relationship. Okay. For example, India's energy trade with Moscow made sure that Russian crude kept flowing into the market, helping steady global oil prices. Very nice. इकोनॉमिक सैंक्शंस रशिया पे आ गए थे. अब रशिया काफी नेचुरल गैस सप्लाई करता है दुनिया को, ठीक है, क्रूड ऑयल भी सप्लाई करता है बहुत ज्यादा. इट्स अ वेरी नाइस रिजर्व. नाउ इफ नोबडी वुड बी टेकिंग ऑयल फ्रॉम रशिया, ओके, what would happen? There would be a demand and supply problem, and that would lead to increase in the oil prices. We kept on buying oil from Russia, so this demand supply thing did not happen, and it helped the global oil prices to be in check. से वो ना spurt नहीं हुआ, बड़ा नहीं. So it was a win-win ना for everybody. Its close cooperation with Russia can also act as a speed breaker in Moscow's quasi-alliance with China, which the West sees as the only revisionist power that has the capability to rewrite the existing global order. और इससे फायदा वेस्ट को भी होगा. क्योंकि अगर हम रशिया के साथ में नहीं खड़े रहेंगे तो रशिया वुड बी टोटली इंक्लाइंड टुवर्ड्स चाइना एंड चाइना वुड बिकम इवन मोर पावरफुल एंड द वेस्ट डज नॉट वांट दैट टू हैपन. Okay, so we are in a way, whatever we are doing, it's helping the entire world, not just us. Unfortunately, India's partners in the West who are agitated matlab disturbed or irritated over New Delhi's Russia ties and its emphasis on strategic autonomy, do not appreciate the bigger picture. They're not able to look at the bigger picture. They don't understand the dynamics. This is the unipolar mentality. You are either with us or against us. तो हमेशा यूएस सोचता है या तो तुम मेरे साथ हो और अगर तुम मेरे साथ नहीं हो तो तुम मेरे खिलाफ हो. Either you're a partner or you are an opponent. Right? This approach was not quite successful even during the unipolar era, as the 2 decade long war against terror would testify. How was it going to work post unipolarity? This approach that या तो तुम मेरे साथ हो या तो मेरे दोस्त या फिर मेरे दुश्मन, ये polarities थी, ये dichotomy में रहा. ये तो वही चीज वो ये बोल रहे हैं कि ये तो जब unipolar era था, when there was only US ruling the world and it had that 2 decade long war against terror where it completely dismantled Afghanistan, then it completely trounced Iraq, है ना, in the name of as we say, fight against terror and all that. Even then, who suffered? Nothing good came out of those things. So ये कह रहे तब भी ये वर्कआउट नहीं हुआ तो अब क्या ही वर्कआउट होगा. नाउ तो US hegemony is slightly on the decline. So this was such a beautifully written article. Wouldn't you agree? I thoroughly enjoyed reading it. It was very informative. It gave us a very beautiful glimpse, a summary of the international relations, keeping India in the center, right? So I hope it's crystal clear. Hi, Akshit. Akshit, which live lecture are you asking about? Akshit, here, if you have any queries, please mail the support team. Support team would look into it and you will definitely be able to access the live lectures. Okay. तो प्लीज वो जो सपोर्ट का आपको ईमेल सपोर्ट एट टॉप रैंकर जैसा कुछ ईमेल आईडी आपको प्रोवाइड किया गया होगा, है ना, वो आप प्लीज देख लो, है ना. रॉयल स्टार, यू ऑल्सो लाइक द एडिटोरियल. इट वॉज अ वंडरफुल एडिटोरियल. नाउ लेट्स मूव अहेड एंड इस पे थोड़ी सी चर्चा कर लेते हैं. मेन आइडिया इसका क्या था? व्हाट वाज द मेन आइडिया? ओके, India maintains its strategic autonomy by making independent foreign policy decisions that serve its national interest despite pressure from the US to align more closely with Western positions, particularly regarding Russia. This approach underscores, what underscores means highlights, India's commitment to a balanced, multipolar world order and its historical stance of non-alignment. है ना, पूरे अच्छे सम अप कर रहा है ये चीज अच्छी तरीके से. आई होप इट इज क्लियर. व्हाट वाज द टोन? आई थिंक द टोन वाज वेरी assertive because here the author has very clearly put up what has been India's stance right from the beginning, and India has the right to strategic autonomy, and that is what precisely it has been doing through and through. So it's written in a very assertive tone. The words seem to be, rooted in a belief, in a conviction that whatever India is doing, India's foreign policy is very justified. So the tone looks very assertive. Thank you, Storm. You find this series helpful and you're asking me to continue it. Okay, I'll see. We will try, beta. We will try. Domain or genre? Definitely international relations. Okay, it's talking about different countries and their relationships. The important points starts with ambassador's statement. Garcetti claimed that strategic autonomy is meaningless during crisis, challenging India's stance. Modi's Moscow visit. Okay, despite US concerns, we went ahead with the Russia visit, and it highlights the stress points in India-US relationship. The concept of strategic autonomy was then discussed, that whatever foreign policy we have, it was based on national interest, and so far it's been a very non-aligned stance. Historical approach. Since independence, India has pursued various forms of strategic autonomy. Global order shift. With the rise of China and Russia challenging the West, India seeks to balance relations without joining any alliance system. Russia policy. We have very strong ties with Russia, especially in defense, and so we cannot easily alter them. Okay. Positive sum game, India views its strategic autonomy as beneficial for global stability. हमने बोला ना पूरे ग्लोब के लिए अच्छा है. Okay, and this is not just a zero sum game. This is a positive sum game. Western misunderstanding, they still feel they have a binary view. Either you are with us or you are against us. This is outdated and this cannot understand India's nuanced approach. Wow, beautiful. And finally, vocabulary vortex, some nice words coming your way, है ना? तो मैंने आपसे पूछा था vocabulary vortex में कौन सा literary device है, तो definitely भाई alliteration तो है ही. V है ना, repetition of the sound in consecutive words is alliteration. तो alliteration तो ये है, but along with that vortex, vocabulary का बवंडर. तो एक और चीज है ना? हाँ ध्रुव, can you bring a poem as a RC someday? Oh ho. Interesting. I will do it in some of my regular videos that I come up with on the YouTube channel, है ना? आप सब्सक्राइब तो आप लोगों ने कर लिया होगा, तो whatever videos I'll come up with, you will get the notification and you'll be able to catch that live or at least you'll watch it. Editorials में poems नहीं आती हैं ध्रुव, hence I'll not be able to you know concede to what you have just said, but definitely somewhere or the other poem comprehension मैं करूंगी, ठीक है, क्योंकि इस बार आया भी ना एक एग्जाम में, तो I understand. तो vocabulary vortex is also a metaphor. Do you understand how and why? Vocabulary का whirlpool, vocabulary का vortex, है ना? तो we have actually equated this influx of vocabulary, we have equated this to a vortex. तो ये एक metaphor भी हुआ, समझ में आया? Okay. Vis-a-vis, in relation to, compared with, the company's financial performance was reviewed vis-a-vis its competitors. मतलब compared with its competitors. Fine. Synonyms: in regard to, with respect to, in reference to. I would suggest that you take a screenshot of this and then later enter this in your vocab register. Sovereignty, supreme authority of a state to govern itself without external interference. मेरा देश है, मैं जैसे चाहे चलाऊं, आप कोई नहीं होते बीच में इंटरफेयर करने वाले. Okay, so that is sovereignty. Self rule, autonomy, independence, self governance. Sentence: the country fought to protect its sovereignty against foreign invasion. Okay, invasion हम सब समझते हैं. Manifestation, a clear display or expression of something. Okay, the rise in tensions was a clear manifestation of the underlying conflicts, है ना? जो conflicts थे अंदर अंदर वो दिख रहे हैं, जैसे जैसे tensions बढ़ रहे हैं, conflicts नजर आ रहे हैं लड़ाइयों के through. Demonstration, exhibition, revelation, display, expression. Okay, toe the line is a very nice expression. To conform to rules, standards, or expectations of the authority, what the authority says. Follow the rules, adhere to guidelines, comply, conform, obey. Employees are expected to toe the line when it comes to company policy. That means you have to follow. Solidarity, unity or mutual support within a group, especially in the pursuit of a common goal or cause. जब आपको साथ देना पड़ता है ना अपने साथ वालों का, when you show that support or unity, that is solidarity. The workers showed solidarity by supporting each other during the strike. Synonyms: cohesion, when you're together like a well-knit group, that's cohesion. Harmony, support, togetherness, unity, of course. Conviction, दो मतलब, एक तो लीगल जजमेंट कि आप गिल्टी हो इन अ क्रिमिनल केस, दैट इज यू बिकम अ कॉन्विक्ट एंड यू आर कन्विक्टेड. आपका कन्विक्शन हो गया, मतलब साबित हो गया कि आप गुनहगार हो और अब आपको सजा मिलेगी. या फिर जो ज्यादा कॉमनली यूज होता है, अ फर्म बिलीफ इन समथिंग, अ स्ट्रॉन्ग बिलीफ or certainty about something, that's your conviction. Okay, all right. And sentence: her conviction in the importance of education or to become a dedicated teacher. तो उनमें वो fit था कि education बहुत important है, so that led her to become a very dedicated teacher. Okay, synonyms: belief, tenet, firm belief in something. Certitude, certainty in something. Credo is also faith. Stance, your opinion or viewpoint about something. Okay, so I guess that's all for today. Um, and thank you so much for being a wonderful audience as always. We have already run out of time, so it won't make sense to discuss another article. But then I'll try to cover two articles the next week. हम अब मिलेंगे Monday को. Monday to Friday होता है, but then you have to promise me that you will keep reading. And that's all. Thank you so much. Bye bye. Take care. And I'll catch you again on Monday, God willing. Bye. Take care.